Did I get sun today?
Yeah, you did. I don't know if you're as sunburned as me. Dave pretty much used up the last of the sunscreen. We're like spraying each other, and he's like, "Do my back," and it runs out. And I was like, "Oh, only my whole body left to go."
I get that. I get that
15
SPF that like oil. I like to look good. I look good for like an hour, and then I burn. That's basically how it is.
That spray stuff is a joke, though. You can't spray on sunscreen in a fine mist. Like, you have to rub it in.
Especially when it's like 50 knot winds. All right, ready to jump right into this?
Sure.
What, you don't want me to cut you off? Hold on. All right, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Why are you laughing?
You.
Is it a shitty intro already?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the SAP, the Sex Actually podcast. Your boy Dave Neal with Tasha Courtney and Subhah Agarwal.
Hey, welcome.
I just fucked it up.
No, you
did.
said it a little wrong.
Oh man, I think I rushed the Agarwal. Or did
Agarwal? I don't care. I'm not super picky.
You're like, I'm not really even sure how I say it.
I'm not.
Do you ever feel like sometimes Tasha is not like but people say it multiple ways, and I'm just like, I don't really know.
They want to make it a Tasha or something?
Or
Taisha?
like a Tasha. British people say Tasha.
But see, that's like an accent thing. That's
not.
That's what they say with my name. They're like, you're saying it wrong. But I'm like, I have to say it with an accent for it to be like, it just doesn't seem natural for me to say it that way.
No, but you're raised in Missouri?
No.
Illinois. Fuck. I don't know the difference between the two. They're next to each other, right?
Yeah.
Can you hear different accents in that region?
Mississippi's next to
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So are you...
Wait, oh my God, did I just make myself sound really stupid? Did I say Mississippi?
You said
yeah,
Mississippi.
you did, and I was like,
to edit that out. I really did not mean Mississippi. Holy
Missouri?
shit. What am I thinking
Montana?
of? No,
Memphis.
No.
I would have been okay if Mississippi was next to you.
I was like, really?
No, it's not.
What
It's
am I
not.
missing?
I feel like that's... I'm a little hot here. I'm turning myself down here. No, that's what's interesting about you, though, because you've got like a unique Midwestern accent, I think.
Oh, thanks.
You're trying to Google where you're from?
Oh, no, I wasn't. Missouri. I said Mississippi. I was like,
Yeah.
what am I missing
Missouri.
out?
Yeah, no, you said Mississippi. It's done. We changed it in post. It was 2 hours of editing I just had to do for you to say that you're from Missouri.
No, she's
Missouri is
from
right
Illinois.
next to Illinois.
Gotcha.
But for some reason, I was like, Missouri, Mississippi. I was like, that's not fucking
But you don't
right.
have like a... I think of Chicago when I think of Illinois. You don't have that sort of accent. What?
I'm northwest suburbs.
So what is that? What's like the biggest major city near you? Or just nothing?
I mean, Chicago, because that's only like an hour away from us, like where we lived.
Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, how many hours from you is that? Tasha's from up northern Kentucky, which is like the Cincinnati area.
I would say like 6 to 8. I'm not really sure. I don't know how far it is.
But did you start comedy in the Midwest?
Mm-hmm. I started in Chicago.
How was that?
It was fine. I mean, I was really young and I was really bad. I was mimicking, there's like this Indian comic named Russell Peters.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like a mimic of him when I first started. So it was just a lot of race jokes when I really didn't know anything about Indian people. So it was just completely off base. You know what I mean? Or it's like, how many people do this? And then they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But it was like, the first place I performed was this club that was right off of a major Indian street in Chicago, Devon Avenue. So it would just be like crowds of Indian people that I would just bomb in front of. So it broke me of that habit real quick because I was like, oh, they know I have no idea what the hell I'm talking
How old were you when you started?
Were you not from like
17.
a big Indian community? Were you? It's just your family and like a sea of white people in Illinois.
And then like there were like an Indian group, but they were like in different suburbs. So it's like we would come together, but like our neighborhood was pretty much all white.
Now, are you expected as a like most Indians are doctors and like kind of very smart? I mean, you win every spelling bee out there, right? So like, then is there like some shame that you're 17 and you want to start stand-up comedy?
Oh yeah, I mean they took me to my first mic and then forbade me from doing it. So I just like lied about where I was going for the longest time, and then it was like bad for like years and years and years, like of just constant. They were so upset.
Took. Was it like if a parent catches you smoking, they make you smoke a pack of cigarettes? It's like, did they take you to the mic thinking you weren't gonna like it, but you was like,
no, because I wanted to go, and then I didn't want to tell my parents, but my friends were like, because it was the suburbs, they're like, you're not just gonna go into Chicago by yourself, are you? And I was like, all right, fine. I guess I don't want to get murdered. Chicago's fine. Totally could have gone there by myself, but I had my parents take me because I was 17 and I'd never been, so I was like, you know what? Let me just.
I mean, even just trying to find parking.
I
like,
know.
let's be be, like even if Chicago is like a little shady but not that shady, you're like, where do I park?
But I feel like going to see a stand-up show is risky with your parents, but that's like a professional comedy. An open mic is just a cesspool.
Well, I had no idea. I had literally I'd never been to an open mic before. Like, I had just seen stand-up. So I didn't know what I was walking into. Like, the amount of, like, dick and rape joke. I had no idea what was coming my way, where I was like, holy shit.
That weren't yet, like, tailored to be funny or have a point of view.
100%.
They're just people that are finally excited to say something out loud.
Oh, real bad. And it was, like, two of my best friends, like, one of which was, like, dying because my parents were so mad the entire show. And it was, like, a running joke between comics. We're like, why are there two angry Indian people here? Like, that was, like, a running joke.
Oh, no.
I can't even imagine. Tasha's
and so you were doing a set at this mic? You did?
How'd your set go?
The set went really well. It went surprisingly well.
Did you tell them it was your first time?
I'm sure they did.
They
sure
did,
somebody did that. I don't remember. But, like, I crushed and then, like, bombed for, like, 2 years later. But, like,
that's the beginner's luck, right? You have to do at least sort of well up front or you'll never want to do it again.
I'm always shocked by comics that bombed their first time and then came back. That always surprised me. But
You're pretty much given, though, when the audience, especially when the audience are comedians, when they know it's your first time, they're extra nice to you because they almost want you to be sucked into their misery. So they're like, you know what I mean? Like, they really do. They're like, oh, yeah, you're doing great out there. Stick. And then it's like, good luck, you fucking asshole. And then, 5 years later, you're still toying around with these people. But so your parents forbade you, like, was it on the car ride home where they were like, no, this isn't?
Yeah, it was like almost immediately where, like, I think the MC asked if I was going to come back. My dad was like, no.
He told him no. What did they expect you to do the rest of your life at that point?
Anything, like be a I told him I was initially going to be a bioengineer, and then, like, I didn't like the way, because I entered as a sophomore with all the college credits, and I didn't want to spend a full 4 years in Pittsburgh. And the way bioengineering, the labs were spaced out, it would have taken me a full 4 years. And I'm like, I'm not fucking doing that. So I randomly changed my major to actuarial math. And they were fine with that. Like, as long as it was something, like, stable and, like, high earning, they wouldn't give a shit.
That's, like, sounds as far away from comedy as you can go, as actuarial math.
I just wanted something that I knew I could do that would be easy to me. Like, because, like, if it's a language or something I cared about, I would actually get invested and have to put in a lot of work. Where it's like math, it was just very easy to me. Like, you just do it.
So show up, crunch the numbers, go home.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was there to buy you time.
Yeah, it was more of like, and I needed a way to get to New York because it's like, I don't know. I guess I hear stories of kids that just moved out there with they're like, yeah, I had no money, I figured it out, but, like, I didn't know how to do any of that. So I was like, just get a job offer, have a company pay me to move to New York. Like, that was the plan, and that's what happened. So
yeah, I feel like
a really roundabout way.
The people that just move there on a whim, you're just one hiccup away or like one scam away from having to go back home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The people that
you have to be really smart, I think, to pull that off.
We talked about that, our move to New York. When I moved to New York, I sold my Subaru and I took the $2,000 from that, and that was my first, last, and security deposit or whatever. And then the guy never got back to me for 2 weeks, so I assumed he just ripped me off and my money was gone. But it turns out he was, like, touring his band through Europe, and this is 2009 when you just didn't call people right back. So I was like, oh, for sure, that was my first day in New York. I'm homeless and I have no money, and it turned out it was completely fine. But yeah, I had to start working right away and had no savings whatsoever, and it was like the dead of winter and I knew nothing about the city, and it was like, god damn it, could you have a little bit? But I was coming from Rhode Island, which is only a 3-hour drive, so I was like, it didn't feel like I was packing up and moving. But Tasha moved to New York basically quitting college. That was kind of your...
Well, I not exactly. I moved to New York. I had a job in fashion design. But I was in this my college, it was, again, going to be like yours. Like, it was a 5-year program. It was just, like, way too long of a commitment to be, like, paying out-of-state tuition and, like, not really enjoying myself, But the way it was set up, it was on the quarter system, and every other quarter you would take basically an internship. But the program was super selective about the companies that they would work with. And so your internship was not an intern. Like, you weren't a coffee bitch. It was like you had a real job that they just kind of left open for a student to always have that job. So I'd be like a design assistant in, like, women's woven bottoms at, like, a company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I moved to New York for that job. And then while I was doing that job, I like went to an open call on the weekend for like a modeling thing. And I ended up booking that. And within 2 weeks, I had booked like 10 days worth of jobs that were like going to be on my break in the time that I was supposed to move back to school. And I was like, I'm staying. Like,
Yeah,
I'm not going back to school.
I'd pay anything to hear the phone call between Tasha and her parents.
It was an ugly phone call. Honestly, you don't want to hear that.
Do you just break down and cry after? I feel like that's the thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I cried. I either was angry and held it all inside, or I cried. Like, it was one of the two. I'm not sure.
Tasha can do both.
Maybe
She
both.
can be angry, keep it all bottled in, and cry. She's got a very good. Did you have to have that moment with your parents where you're like this, like that coming out moment where it's like, I'm gonna do it. I'm doing this.
No, it was more of like I broke because they always they knew I had a curfew, so they'd always let me go early. But I guess they got sick of it, so like he was like, no, you have to stay and host the whole show because you always leave early. But so like I ended up breaking curfew by like a lot, and then
This is still when you're 17?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, at some point I turned. No, I was still 17. And then I like I'm driving home, like rushing, trying to get home, and then like I have all these excuses going in my head, and I open up the door, and my mom's just sitting there, and she just goes, "I know where you've been," and I'm like, "Oh, fuck." Yeah, and then she like wouldn't talk to me.
I
It was,
know
like,
where
busted.
you've been.
Yeah. It's like I was going off to college, so she couldn't stop me, and she knew no matter what, like. She knew I was one of those kids where it's like, if I want something, she's not going to be able to stop me from doing it.
It's
like,
gotta
unless
it doesn't matter like how much silent treatment you get or how many like disappointed or like screaming matches.
Or
like,
if she had like kicked me out of the house, I would not have given a shit. Like I had already looked up like women's shelters in Chicago like in advance.
Wow.
What?
Yeah, it's just like one of those things where my mom knows the harder she pushes on me, the harder I push back and the more danger I'm in. So it was
Are you the oldest?
Youngest.
Youngest.
Mhm.
Interesting. Out of how many?
Just brother. Older
Okay.
brother.
But so you're the first. So you're still the firstborn daughter, though.
Yeah.
Daughters
daughters
get treated tough. They get.
Yeah, they get the short end of the stick.
But doesn't it
for
make
sure.
you? Isn't it interesting though? Like you never put yourself in the mindset of your parents, where like you want to be as strict as possible without completely pushing them away. So at some point, as a parent, you have to just be like, all right, it could be worse. I mean, that's like.
But I feel like you don't figure that out until like later, later kids. I was the firstborn. I got the full being a girl and the firstborn. Like they just had no idea like what that balance between like, okay, could be worse or like full stop on the discipline. You know what I mean?
Subhah, the shit I got to deal with because her parents were strict with her is really like I am being railroaded, like just like run over by emotions because I can't tell Tasha what to do. I can't just even remotely bring up the idea of criticizing her about something. And it's really comes down to because your parents couldn't. And maybe that was the spirit maybe that was you from the beginning. Maybe maybe like I'm sure you were colicky, right? You were crying from the beginning. So who knows? You just were birthed on a tough day. You were birthed and immediately were like, fuck this.
I think I was born on a perfect day. But anyway, I wanted to ask your older brother, what did he go into? Did he like do the school path or is he like a creative?
He's a PhD in electrical engineering.
Okay.
So straight.
Mom and dad are very proud.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're super successful. I mean, you write for the Jim Jeffries Show. That's you're well respected on either coast of the comedy world.
Thank you.
That's a big deal, and you're still super young, so your career's still taking flight. I'm just talking like I'm a grandfather here.
We'll see. I don't know. I've been in a very dark place lately, but let's.
But that's where the cocoon is. It's in the dark place.
We'll see.
Where you go
see.
You start to wonder what you're doing with your life, and that's when the magic's happening. That's when like we I think sometimes we'll have this moment where you're like, all right, I checked off these benchmarks. I performed here. I've done this. Now what? And it's like that constant itch to be better, but that's kind of what pushes you in the right direction, I guess. So you're 17 or 18. Your mom basically says, I know where you've been, which is like, it sounds like you've been selling drugs.
I know. So dramatic.
And then are you guys cool after that? It's like, all right, I get it.
No. She would like, oh, I don't know how much of her spot. Well, she's not gonna. It was just like she would always like she would say fucked up shit and then like not remember she said it, which is wild. Like things like I love you, but I don't love you. Like, you know, it would be like, oh, you'd be perfect if it wasn't for this one thing where it's like you're my daughter, but not like you're not my daughter. Like it was just like fucked up shit where it was just bad for a really long time. And like she would call me crying, like wanting me to go to law school and stuff, like after college and stuff. Like it was bad for a very long time.
So what is that? Because or were they first generation? So that's just they see a path to success, right? And and it's hard for them to see like a creative. It's hard for first generation because their whole job was to like take root, get here, you know, whatever. And you're the first people that they've brought here that, you know, they want you to just follow that path.
And there are paths that are like very clear cut.
That's the thing.
Straight and easy, you know, like it's pretty much a surefire road to success, but the creative's path to success is winding, and it's like not a very clear path. Like sometimes you need to like bring out your little like bushwhacker thing and like make a path yourself.
I think it was a combination of things. It's like number one, like morally, like what they saw from comedians, like they didn't want me around that, and I don't fucking blame them because Jesus, you know. And then it was like that. It's like they were very worried about my future because it's like it is a very hard thing to make money at. So it's like I get what they're coming from. And then it's like as small business owners, like my parents are small business owners. So it's like they had to deal with a lot of instability and a lot of hard work. And it's like they've watched people who do similar paths like that, like fall into depression. And like my mom was very worried about that with me. She's like, this is your dream. You're chasing it. It doesn't happen. You can get really sad. You know, and she's not wrong. Like, I mean, I've had one thing go south for like in like a month. I've like not been sleeping. Like, it's just been so fucking hard. I mean, this is a tough path.
You mean lately? Recently?
Yeah, like I even like last night, I was like, it's been nothing but like weed and CBD oil. Like,
like I need to relax and forget about my problems.
That sounds like the Church of Los Angeles. Just weed and CBD oil. Just rub it on, you'll feel better.
But it's like devastating because this isn't a meritocracy, and it's like. The latest thing, I mean, it might still work out, but the latest thing I had go sideways was a 1.5 years of work. And it was like this awesome opportunity. And then it just gets lit on fire through some shit that's completely not your fault. And you just have to take that lump. And it's like hard. You know what I mean?
And the second you think you've got something lined up, you start picturing the new place, the digs, I'll put money into this and that. And it all lines up. I always think of like the writers for Roseanne. You know what I mean? I go, what the fuck? That was someone that was like their first writing job or they worked their way up.
I know a girl whose first day it was when Roseanne got canceled.
Because here's what she did. I'm just
like she didn't even like get a paycheck. They didn't even like get her processed at HR.
I'm gonna be projecting, but let's use her as not you, but this girl as an example. She probably called her dad crying, happy. She put this whole writing packet together. She finally got this big opportunity, and then Roseanne had Xanax or Ambien and said that so and so looked like Planet of the Apes, not knowing she was also black. We don't need to get into the politics of it all, but pretty crazy that affects the writers' room and all these other. And you know that's the WGA. You finally get.
Well, they went on with the show without her, right?
Eventually, but it didn't last. I don't think within a year. Once she was gone, they spun it to another. It was Roseanne, and they made it the O'Connors or whatever, and it didn't. Yeah, it flopped. It was Roseanne. Roseanne's one of the funniest women that's ever worked. She's a huge star. You know, you don't just kick her out and it keeps going. But that's crazy.
She was a bit batty though. I mean, but everyone knew that from the jump.
Yeah, she has a mental illness.
They just thought she was gonna be able to rein it in, but it's like, nah, she couldn't.
Some people just need their Twitter taken away.
I know.
You know,
but listen, I've lived with people that will eat all of my protein bars at night on Ambien. I've lived with those guys. They're fucking nuts. They black out. They like that show, you know, you can black out and drive somewhere, fuck somebody and not even remember it.
But there are plenty of instances, like if you're not a known name in Hollywood and you go in and you make it far and you're like at screen test stage and chemistry read with somebody, they are background checking the fuck out of you. Yeah. They're going as deep as they can in your Twitter to see if you have any skeletons in your closet. And if you do, they don't cast you.
Yeah.
And or Or, and this is the other thing, like what's his name, Josh Gordon or something from the Patriots.
Yeah.
Like if somebody really has like talent and they really have their heart set on this person and they have a little bit of a problem, this Josh Gordon guy, I don't know if you know, he's a Patriots player, but he like has a substance abuse, like an addiction issue. He can't stay on the field.
Like they have team players follow him around and he's still.
But that's my point is that like, if somebody's a little bit risky, they should have a team 24/7 monitoring their behavior.
Yeah, there needs to be an app that Roseanne, as an example, but like there needs to be an app where your text and your public things go through the app. You know, obviously Trump should have it. So like when he wants to fire a tweet out, it goes, because like in radio, I was saying how they have that like kill button. You know, where like if you say it's a swear, or even if like you're not supposed to talk about Trump at all, and then somebody on the radio talks about Trump, the VP just hits the button, and then those 30 seconds are gone. You know what I mean? Like they have ways of scrubbing it. They need that for what you put out there, because
they have an app like that. I'm pretty sure that's like a text your ex app. That's like you run it through your girlfriends. I'm sure this exists. If it doesn't, it's crazy. But like your girlfriends filter it first, and they either approve or disapprove that you can like send this.
No, you're saying it because this was my idea. That you if you set it to how many, like a percentage of people that need to like upvote it before it goes off. So if like I want to text somebody, 10 of my buddies, at least like 6 of them have to respond, and like 5 out of 6 have to agree that it's okay. So if like the point is that like if you're in a state
like
of
a
codependency,
if
you're like
not moved on yet from your ex, you're not allowed to text them.
Do you have that problem with the texting? Where you're just like reading into things.
Yeah, I used to definitely be like a late night texter, but it's been so long since that's been the case. I think like I was always very like into my work, and then it's like I would have like weird benchmarks where it's like, oh shit, I haven't gone on a date in like a year, and then I would just text everyone on my phone, which is like not how you do that.
It's just a numbers game.
It was just like bad, you know. There was like one point where I had a writing job and the company was paying for a car like back to anywhere we wanted, and that's like I was like literally texting everyone on my phone because I hadn't gotten a date in 8 months. I was like, oh shit.
So you had a car ready to send people to you, or you to them?
Me to them. So I was like trying to be like, all right, this will work out. Nothing. I got nothing, which is such a sad moment. Trying to pimp yourself out like dominoes. I'm like 30 minutes or less.
You must get hit on a good amount. So like I know I've been jumping around here. Back to your early days of comedy. You're 17, you're 18. I mean, are these comics sliding in, like trying to are they hitting on you? You're like the fresh young comic.
At 17 so much. I think there were like a couple like really creepy older men that like 40-year-old dudes who would like try and be like, yeah. There was like this one dude who tried to take me to the movies, which is just like the creepiest, most pedophile shit ever.
Oh no.
Yeah, I can take it. I was just like, no. Like everyone there was just so gross to me. I don't think I really started getting hit on until I was like maybe in college for a bit.
How are you about acknowledging when a guy's hitting on you? Like, do you pick up on those things?
I mean, now I do. I don't think I did back then.
Yeah, because like in the college ages, I feel like guys are shitty at hitting on women, and women are sometimes don't pick up on their shitty hitting. You know what I mean? Like, it's tough. Like, if there's
or they do pick up on it, but they're just pretending not to because you're doing such a shitty job of hitting on them that they don't even want to acknowledge it.
I'll just say this. I know I could have probably gotten laid more if I was just more open. And it was like, I had a guy I used to work with. He was like 10 years older than me. It was a blue collar summer job. My stepdad has a heating and air conditioning company. So I'd be in a van with this dude, Rob. And Rob was amazing. And we'd like listen to Tupac on cassette. Like this dude taught me about life. And Rob, and he the one thing he told me, because we'd be like in attics in the summertime, like putting air conditioning together. So we'd be just like 140 degrees sweating, like insulation stuck to us. And I remember he goes, Dave, you never know what a woman will do unless you ask. And that sounds really creepy, but that kind of advice.
That actually sounds like consent 101.
Yeah, dude, Rob was all about it. He was all about, but he was just saying like, look, man, sometimes you want to ask for something crazy. Like it didn't have to be like crazy kinky stuff, but you might have a girl who's like a friend of yours or someone who like might be into you, but you don't know unless it's always the guy with the dumb like word vomit that's like, should we just go back to my place and do it? And some women might be like, fuck no, but then the one who's like aboard is cool. Whereas I was the guy who was way too cool, not getting laid at all. That's the cool guy's
because
not getting
you
laid.
weren't being honest and upfront. You weren't being vulnerable.
I was putting myself in the friend zone. I was friend zoning myself. I was just trying to be nice and think that like the women would be into that. And that wasn't like in hindsight, that wasn't a strategy like some of these white knights are like they strategized to be the friend zone. I was just a nice guy who didn't have that like ability to be like, let's go, like, be okay with getting slapped.
Do you think you've developed that ability now, or do you
The
think
ability to
you
get slapped.
I think because that's pretty much what happened with us is you just like friend zoned yourself and then like crawled out of it.
Listen,
if we broke up today, would you friend zone somebody else, or do you think you'd be bold?
I think I would be very bold. Absolutely. I think in New York, I know you don't believe this because we were different because we started as friends. So, but like when I would meet someone, like you'd say something, and I'm not saying this in like it's a Me Too way or like some like, but if you're out at the bars at 11 o'clock at night, everyone's having drinks, you might, and I'm not talking about catcalling, you just might say something to a girl that's like, and your buddy's like, how the fuck do you get away with saying that? It's because people want to be talked to like they're real humans. And I'm not talking like some super sexually aggressive stuff. You just shit on each other. Like you just like kind of make fun of someone's, I don't know, whatever. It's just shit talking.
Making fun of people
Yeah,
is
shit
your
talking.
strategy?
That's my flirting strategy, shit talking. Because some people are just shocked that they would even be talked to like a normal human versus like, trust me, the guy who's like, hello there, princess. And, that guy's not getting laid. He's not. The guy who's just like kind of cool and, I don't know. You guys don't see.
Was that who?
Yeah, I know. Count Chocula.
1, 2. I don't know. What do you like? So are you in a relationship now?
Mm-hmm.
Long term?
Yeah.
How long? How long has it been?
Like over a year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, like a year and a couple months.
Did he initially hit on you, or
He
did you meet through work?
No, he hit on me.
He hit on you just out at the bars?
No,
or
he
what?
actually I think he like kind of hit on me, and I knew he was, but I ignored it. And
that's a running theme. I'm pretty sure guys don't want to admit that happens.
But it's because he was another comic, so I didn't want to. And then he shot me a message after talking to a bunch of female comics who were like, "Oh no, you should go for it" or whatever. Because he also knows it's like not always the easiest thing to ask another comic out.
Yes.
And so he asked me out, and then via Facebook, and then I said no. And then
how did you say no?
I was like, well, because the truth was I did like him a little bit, but I don't like fucking with comics. So I think I tried to be like, no, I think you're super cool, but I don't think comedians should date because it doesn't end well. And something about him is his whole family is dead. So he went, and I didn't know that about him, but he just went, my whole family is dead. Nothing ends well. And I was like, wait, what? And that
that reinforces what I'm saying. That's a funny line that's like very morbid, and you would not think on paper that would work, but that's hilarious.
It caught me so off guard that I got like curious about him. So like I listened to his first album, which was all about his family dying, and then like I got more interested in him as a human being.
It's not too often you listen to a comic's album and then want to date them. That says a lot about his ability to be funny.
It was just so funny because like any other response, it's like I would have been able to brush off, but that caught me so off guard.
Oh wow, he could write a whole book on that line. My whole family's dead. Wait, what was the line?
He's like, well, nothing ends well. My whole family is
nothing
dead.
ends well. My whole family's dead. The self-help dating book. I like it. I'd buy that. Yeah, he's right. Why not? There's people that listen to our podcast all over, and it's like, shit or get off the pot. What are you waiting for? You think you might be into someone, you're probably going to get rejected. You probably will get rejected. So who cares?
Well, if you do, you're not any worse off than you were before you bothered to ask.
Yeah.
That's the most important
I had a similar line when I asked Tasha out in a similar way where we were friends. So we weren't comics together, but we were friends, and there was still that scenario of like, oh boy, like this could go south and whatever. You can't just be friends afterwards. And I was like, we should go out. And then I texted her we should go on a date because like my subtlety wasn't working. So I was like, so she skirted off everything she could skirt off.
Yeah.
But this is 5.5 years ago. This is almost 6 years. This is probably almost 6 years ago. She skirted off everything she could. I knew she was deflecting. We were still hanging out a bunch. We were still like doing a lot of solo stuff. We had probably even kissed at that point. Like we were like, yeah. And I was like, we should go on a date. And then her response was, the next day she responds, wouldn't that make it weird? And then my response is, you just did. And then we just kind of like called it out. And then I was just like, look, like there's really at this point no reason not to, give us a shot, and she can, you know, regret the last 5 years of her life all she wants. But I think says more about your choices than mine. But yeah, it's about taking a leap of faith and just being okay. And and you were right to tell him, like, look, comics you shouldn't shit where you eat. You were right to say that, and then it's up to him to sort of come back with, yeah, so let's do it. Let's just do it, you know? So I think good for him. Because a lot of guys would be like, yeah, you're right, we shouldn't. And then they would walk away.
Yeah, most of them leave me alone. It was very funny because it's like I literally turned down like a couple of comics. And then like I being like, oh, I don't really date convicts. And then I felt a little guilty because then I showed up with with Sean immediately in a relationship with a comedian. I was like, I wasn't lying. I told him the same thing.
Like,
well, persistence, hey, right?
Yeah, but you know, comics can be kind of lazy, and it's like, oh, we should do this, and no, okay, and then you're just like, all right, that's all I was to you. You know?
I also think it just like him and I have a very particular sense of humor and a very particular connection. So like when I listened to the album and I caught like the viewpoint behind it, it's like, and like everything I knew about him, it was like, okay, there's something here, you know?
Yeah, there's the right chemistry.
Yeah.
Any regrets? What, like, did you guys get in too deep? Are you like, did you become different people emotionally when you started dating? Where you're like, oh, I didn't see that side of you before?
I would say so because we started, I mean, we're only a year in, but like it was really fast from the jump. But I think we've handled all the speed bumps pretty well.
And now you have a kitten together?
Yeah, we do.
You live together?
Yeah.
I'm putting the pieces. I didn't know. I took a leap of faith there, Tasha. I was like, I don't know if the kitten is the same guy or she has a roommate. All right, you got a kitten. You have an animal together.
Yeah.
That's a huge leap in the Los Angeles world of dating.
And he's met my parents, so that's like a huge.
And did they approve?
No.
Was your mom like, I know where you were last night with Sean? Your mom, they don't. Is he not Indian?
Well, yeah, he's not Indian. I mean, they're fine. They like him. She's just worried because like I think it's just a cultural difference where he's like he's Southern. Southerners drink. My mom is like from a really strict part of India where they don't drink. Like they met at my brother's wedding. It's a wedding. So of course he was drinking. And so like there was like gossip being like, look at him drink. I'm like, he's not drunk. He's a very large Southern man. Like he can drink that much and not. But it's like I just got tired of arguing with them being like, how could he be drunk meeting your parents? I'm like, he's not fucking drunk. He just sounds like that.
It's not like the meat is the thing. The wedding's the thing. And like weddings have alcohol.
Like he's slurring his words. No, that's his accent. He's Southern. He just has a drawl. Is he from Mississippi?
No, he's from that would be extra embarrassing. No, he's from Alabama and
okay.
Atlanta.
That's fun.
Cool.
I'm sure, yeah. I'm sure he does drink. Alabama and Atlanta, that's a good combo. I love the South. Have you met his parents yet? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
His dad was still alive. He just passed, but I did meet his dad, fortunately, before he passed on.
Is there, there's a lot of sort of pressure on you emotionally if he doesn't have his family there. Like, you know what I mean?
Like, I can call my sister to vent about Dave every other day. But, like, if you don't have a sister to call, who do you vent?
Yeah, what's his, like, circle like?
I mean, he does have a good group of friends. He's like, used to being independent and on his own. So, like, me coming into the picture wasn't, like, I don't know.
Now, it's kind of like you can't call your parents and complain about him because they don't approve of him, right? Like, would you ever call your parents to talk about him?
I don't think so. Probably not. But I'm not like super close with I'm not gonna let them in on what's going on.
Yeah. What about your brother? Do you talk to your brother about stuff like that?
Not really. I mean, I've called them to complain about the kitten. I haven't called them to complain about my boyfriend necessarily. But
do you and your boyfriend study love languages at all? Like, do you know what
he's talked about that? I don't study that stuff. So he's explained it to me a little bit.
Does he give you what you need, like, without trying? Like, does he just know what you need? Because you're both comics, which is good, so you probably are on the same wavelengths with that. Because, like, for Tasha and I, like, sometimes, I'll do things for her, and she doesn't absorb it. It's just not, we're just not speaking the same language. So, I think I'm, like, I'm giving her fucking flowers to her. She's like, no, I need time. It's like, it took me time to get these flowers, and it doesn't always just work that way. But, like, do you know what he needs and what you need?
I mean, I think we're pretty good at communicating. I don't think we'll necessarily know outright, but it's like if I need or want something, like he can tell when I'm not happy or I'm upset or there's something wrong. So I think it's just like talking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just being like, I need this, I want that, or like, you know, like I felt like when we both, because we were both out of town for a while and then we were together, I was like, we need to go on a date. We need, you know, like I can just physically say it, because I don't know, it's really hard sometimes to just guess.
Well, but you I think you take it for granted. Some people don't know what they need. So they can't just say it, and then they're just like, oh fuck, and you know, and then they'll blow up. I'm not just trying to say you. I'm saying, but sometimes, you don't know. I'll wake up and just not even know what I'm fucking, and I'll just be like, well, maybe I'm not feeding my creativity professionally, and I'm just like angry when Tasha wants to go on a hike because I'm just like bitter because I haven't done my work. So like sometimes you'll get snappy on each other and not even realize it, and it's important to like, you know, comics are pretty open and honest. So it sounds like you guys are just like honest to say what you need.
Yeah, that's I think what I've learned the most is just like trying to figure it out and just trying to talk it out as much as physically possible. Because I don't like doing that, but I know that's healthy. You know, it's like I don't want to talk about this, but I know I have to, you know?
That's interesting. I'm trying to, because I'm having a hard time kind of painting what type of, you know, person she is, as far as like, because you don't sound needy, and you like, for me, I'm codependent, right? I want to talk everything out, and it's my own like fault. I want to talk it out past the time it needs to be talked out. Tasha wants to hear it but not address that she heard it and move on. So like I'll be like, I'll drag a conversation out, and Tasha's like, we get it, it's over, and I'll be like, yeah, but I didn't know that you got it. You know what I mean? So we're just not always there. You know, you look taxed right now, Tasha.
Me?
Yeah.
No. Just I'm sunburned.
Have you had relationships in the past that were toxic? Like you didn't know?
100%.
And do you know what it was that like made them toxic?
Well, I mean, it's like, I don't know. You're never supposed to say it's the other person, but it was 100%. He was a shitbag. Well, I was like a lot younger than him, and he was an alcoholic, and he relapsed while we were together, and he was just like super manipulative and like abusive. So he was like super shitty, you know. But
so when you say manipulative, because Tasha calls me manipulative sometimes, and while I listen to go, okay, maybe I am doing something manipulative, maybe I'm trying to like leverage emotionally, because you just work with what you have, and especially if things aren't going well, you just work with what you have to try to make it better. But I also have to tell Tasha sometimes, look, not everything I do is me manipulating you. If I want to like shed a tear and tell you I love you, I'm not manipulating you. I'm just like bursting through with emotions, and that can happen. But like,
sure, that can happen. But
a
manipulative person does that every time you have a fight, spins it around to make you feel like it's your fault, or like that. You know what manipulating is, right? Like,
yeah, but sometimes I'll have to remember to own up in a fight and not be sensitive. And being sensitive sometimes will be like, you know, you want to win, and it creates this kind of like me versus you thing, and that's never good for fights. But something happened yesterday, and you were saying it was manipulation, and I was like, this is so far. And it's usually like me. And I equated it to this video I saw of a manatee that was swimming in the shallows of a beach. And every time it got up to like say hi to a couple swimmers, the swimmers freaked the fuck out because I thought it was a shark. And then it would swim up to another couple people, and then they would freak the fuck out. And I was like, I think that's how I am when we fight, is I'm the manatee who like wants love, and you're like, I've been manipulated before, don't do this to me. That's how I feel it is, Tasha.
Maybe you're onto something, but I just think, you know, we've talked about this before, that, and I'm not saying that men should be stoic and hide their emotions at all, but I do believe that there's like a time and a place for everything. So like if you're trying to say, so I don't even know, like in a fight, and you're like all of a sudden doing the waterworks, like that's what girls get accused of doing.
Honestly, my boyfriend had like 2 sisters like growing up, and like he is immune to that. So like sometimes it's like I just stop crying because I'm like trying to show him that I'm like, it hurts, but it doesn't register to him as a thing.
That would register to me.
Yeah, he doesn't give a shit. It's like I have to yell my point. It's like crying does nothing to help me.
I think that's what happens is like as you get older, like it becomes a part of like your makeup on how you handle fights, your background. So if you had sisters that were like crying all the time, you know, or you dated somebody that like cried wolf or was manipulative, like then that becomes like a response where you're just like, no, this, don't pull that on me.
But I also think, Tasha, you're scared of that. You're scared of like seeing these emotions, and like I love it when you cry, because I see the tears and all that as like that release. Sometimes you can't get it until you cry. I'm not a guy that cries all the time. I haven't had a good cry in a while, but like I love it. I know I was raised growing up before my mom remarried, which is my mom and my sister. My mom would be like, let it out, Dave. And I'm like, and it was never I'm not trying to manipulate my mom. I never asked anything of her. I would never like cry to get her to buy me a toy. I'd feel guilty if she bought me a toy. Like, oh, you'd have to do this. But like for me, I don't know. That's just, I don't go to fear. I mean, I don't go to anger. I go to sadness, I guess. You know what I mean? Like I don't go to like, I feel like sometimes, Tasha, you'll present that emotion as anger. Like, how could you do this to me? Like in defense of like, protecting yourself. That's like that. That's your, like, you got that team Tasha where you got to protect yourself. And mine's like, I'm exposed. I'll cry. Hug me. Come on, people. I don't know.
But that's part of your upbringing.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
But it's not me trying to manipulate you.
Well,
Anyway.
But we just had different experiences. So I can like conceptualize that like that's your thing.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that it's always going to be my initial reaction, just like love languages. You know, you have to train yourself.
But it's been very tough for me to learn, and I have learned this, but it's been very tough for me to learn that I have to sometimes be like defense attorney and not like star witness. Because star witness wants to cry and tell you how it is, but defense attorney's got to be like, so like there's been times when I have for the most part had to shut my emotions down in conversations and just give it to you like at a low decibel level, very honest, but very like NPR voice.
Factual, yes. We like facts.
Yeah. But you can be triggered by past times of like toxic manipulation. So like, what was it? Were these toxic things that were happening things that you were able to pinpoint in the moment, or was it like afterwards where you're like, fuck, I was strung along by that guy?
Much afterwards. It was more like I would forgive his behavior and then like chalk it up to like, oh, it was like he relapsed, it was whatever, and then like. It was kind of like right after he kind of sobered up and was like apologizing to me, but he still lit me down and was shitty. And it's like, if I had done what he had done to me to somebody else, like I would spend the rest of my life apologizing. And that's, for some reason, it took that to click in. And then I just hated him. Like it took a really long time for it to click in for me, which is kind of sad. But
well, it's hard to admit that like people will treat you the way you let them.
Yeah.
You know, like you have your bar, you set your expectations, and like if you let that bar be lower, they're just going to continue to be that way.
And I think with abusive relationships, a lot of the times you're chasing the person who they presented themselves as initially. So it's like, you know, because it used to be where it's like he would like call me up. Like I didn't want to date him for a long time, but he would like call me up and like talk to me for like 2 hours a night, almost every night. And then it's like, you know, this great, supportive, like super charming guy that just disappeared. So it's like
you hope for that person.
You keep trying to get back to that person, but that person never really existed. And then it's hard to accept that, especially when they're playing the victim constantly.
So was it like mid-fight where you were able to realize that you were like so over him, or was it like something where he just the final
It was
straw?
just like the simplest thing of he sobered up, and then we were supposed to meet at a coffee shop. Because, like, at this point, we were still friendly, and I had forgiven him. And I was like, oh, I just need someone to read these lines with. And then he didn't show up. And it was, like, mind-blowing to me that, like, he would...
You're like, I'm giving you, like, the last chance.
I know.
Right?
It's
like the simplest...
wild.
I'm asking for the simplest thing for you to just show up, right?
Yeah. So it was... that was, for whatever reason, it, like, wasn't the abuse or, like, any of that. It was just, like... him not showing up when he was sober that made me go.
Plus, yeah, you probably had put all this time and effort into him, and then you asked for something, and
like,
it's not crazy to think.
Nuts. It was like absolutely nuts, you know? Like I went out on my way to try and make out, because like, you know, when he was like bad, like when he would relapse, he wouldn't like drink, he wouldn't eat, like he would be in like severe withdrawal, like he could die, you know? So it's like I would go and like bring him food, try and make sure he was drinking something other than alcohol, like check on him because he wasn't answering his phone. Like it was really fucking frightening.
Yeah,
But-
and it's good. It's good when you're like, it's good to have family that'll help you when you're in a position like that. But your role as like a girlfriend is not to be his like caregiver and like.
But I had never been around an addict. I didn't understand that. I had never been in an abusive thing. So it's like I didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
I was very young. And then it's like I definitely got taken advantage of by like an older, shitty dude. So it was
Jeez.
just, what are you going to do,
What are you gonna do? Have you had that, Tasha? Have you dated an addict before?
No, just losers.
Just losers. I'm right here. Do you think you've dated a lot of losers?
I've dated at least one like real loser.
Yeah, your college guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like real loser.
Does he listen to the podcast?
I hope
Yeah, I'm
not.
gonna write a 5-star review, please. Appreciate that. What about you? Any other like losers? Do you let these guys into your life?
I dated a lot of shitty men. I think it's like kind of just like a pattern you kind of fall into, especially like it's like I don't know, it kind of fucks up your self-esteem or like the way you see stuff. So there was like, there were like a couple of things in my past and then it was just like something I was doing or I was putting out, and I'm not necessarily saying it was my fault, but it's like I don't know, it just kind of fucks you up in a unique way.
Well, if your experience with someone, because if you're in a relationship, it's still like whether or not it's love, it's like an oxytocin, it's a chemical kind of thing. So you're going to equate that relationship and like even all its bad stuff with a relationship, a loving relationship. And so then when you're like meeting new people, that's almost like you're looking for the same kind of person, not on purpose, but like you like get intimidated by like a really good guy. You see someone that like checks all the boxes and you're like, oh, they're not going to be interested in me, or like you feel like you don't have anything in common with them because your experience with relationships has been on this different level.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's what we place in society. So like we watch The Bachelorette, right? We're watching The Bachelorette and Tasha's like, ooh, that guy's a pilot. And I go, anyone can be a pilot. Anyone can log the hours. His dad was a pilot, so he grew up flying planes and knew what the throttle and this. It's like
I think you have to pass a vision test, so maybe not anybody.
I'm just so over the like that some things are rewarded over others. And again, if you're a pilot and you listen, we appreciate it and all that. But like, yeah, so it's hard creatively. Like, do you find that people sort of respect you because you write for the Jim Jeffries Show versus say that you're kind of jumping around the country doing stand-up? You know what I mean? Like, is that an easier thing for your parents to see as like, oh, she does this?
Yeah, of course, because there's like a stable paycheck and like a credit and like some sort of career behind it. So yeah, definitely easier for people to understand.
But it's not, and that's good. But it's also that's like for Tasha's parents. Like I'm sure if someone was like, hey, so what does Tasha's boyfriend do? They'd be like, they've never seen me perform. They don't understand. They finally started, like, I think, asking us how the podcast is going, 500 episodes in, because we stopped calling it the Sex Actually podcast. Now we'll call it the SAP. So it's like, now that because, Midwest, sex talk, it's kind of like, geez, what are we doing with our lives? I mean, that's just what it is. And again, my family too, I've got like close-minded people in my family that like, they're like, my sister, they're just talking points for whatever garbage is thrown at them. You know what I mean? Like they just don't, I don't know. So like, so for me, closer to a decade of doing comedy, you know what I mean? I'm just kind of like, why can't, you just don't get the respect until you have a credit that attaches you to something else. And I think that's with all creative stuff.
I think it's something that they can understand and relate to. They don't understand like freelance or like, doing something creative that's just kind of like chasing your dreams and like side jobs in the meantime. Yeah. But they understand like a title. If you give them like a simple title to say, like they get that. Oh, she writes for the Jim Jeffries Show. Like, what do you think your mom tells her friends when they ask like,
that I was a background on Wolf of Wall Street? That's something. She can talk about that. Now, I don't know. My mom's pretty good. My mom's pretty good because my aunt was she was a soap actress. Like my mom like grew up kind of understanding that like little breaks are way bigger than maybe a bigger paycheck would be. Yeah. But like we've gotten a couple gigs that like paid really well. That's like we've never bragged about those once in our life because they're just kind of like, I don't know. I don't know. It's just like it's just tough because when you do the the freelance lifestyle, you don't exactly know what to even label yourself as.
Yeah, what title do you put on your business card?
Okay, so this there's no way to transition into this, but we have a new sponsor, and they have gifts for our guests. So I want to give you a gift. Our new sponsor is a genital desensitizing spray. So yep, there you go. Her eyes perked up. So it's called Promescent, and they're giving gifts to all of our guests, and it's for the men. It's a genital desensitizing spray. DelaySpray.com, and basically how it works is the guy, if he needs it, if he doesn't, it doesn't have to be a big deal.
Or doesn't need, but feels like trying.
It's not necessarily for it could be for premature ejaculators, but it can also be there's no other way to
performance enhancement.
Yeah, so you just spray a few clicks on, wait a few minutes, and it absorbs into the subdermis. I think it's the term. Again, I'm not a doctor here, but anyway, that's a gift from the SAP to you, and the code for that, everyone out there, is SAP15. Go to DelaySpray.com, and then the voucher for 15% off is SAP15. Yeah, I don't know. That's we got to talk to the owner of this company. He's like this older gentleman who's just like had no business in that world before, but he got involved in this pharmaceutical company. And there's a lot of dudes out there that could use the spray. So we've been giving them out at our live stand-up shows, which I would love to have you on. We do a mimosa stand-up show one Sunday a month. Would you want to do that?
Yeah, I would love that.
I don't have our next date yet, but it's going to be in a couple weeks. I'll let you know. I'll let you know if you can do the date. Are you in town for a bit?
Yeah, I'm here for a bit.
What do you so have you been going back to New York at all, doing comedy there?
Yeah, I was there for a month and a half, and then I came back because of the thing that went sideways. And then I start back at Jeffries in September. So
what's the vibe like over there?
It's fine. It's like I don't know, just any standard.
Because he's one of the most I would say open. When we were on vacation with Tasha's parents, we put on Jim Jeffries, one of his latest specials, and her parents, like they're
very straight laced. Yeah. Like they're just very like.
And I've never heard her dad laugh that hard before.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and he was like just hard cunts, and like he was dropping some not your dad, but Jim Jeffries was, and I was like maybe it's the accent, maybe like the Australian accent, he can get away with saying some things, but like Tasha's dad loved it, and I was like, it must be a very, I don't know, just open work environment there. I don't know.
That's awesome. Oh yeah, I mean it's not. Nobody's not saying what's on their mind.
But what's your average day like over there? Are you just throwing shit at the wall, brainstorming new
No, it's
bits?
pretty structured. It's like we film Tuesdays, so Monday is like punch up and like a run through. Tuesdays is filming. Wednesday we normally pitch ideas for what to write about next week, and then Thursday we split up and write. It's like there'll be a couple writers writing on one segment, and then the head writer would take all of our scripts and Frankenstein like one script out of everybody's pieces. And so that'll happen Thursday or Friday, and then either the final version of the script we'll either read through with Jim or like see what we think depending on what the timeline is. And so
Are you like banking ideas when you guys aren't recording?
I mean, we should be.
It's like summer school. She's like, I haven't done my reading yet. That's exciting. So, well, congrats on how many seasons have you been over there?
So I've been there since the jump. So this is the third season.
Did you know him before you started, or
Nope.
How did you even get involved over there?
Just writing submissions through my management.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I hope whatever this other project that went sideways, I hope you reroute. I know you will reroute, and
I'm not so sure. I had it's okay, like you hear about this shit all the time. It just happens. It's just so devastating, where it's like just before that, I had worked on a late night set for like a year with this woman. Let me not say woman because that might make it obvious who it is. I worked on a late night set for a year with this person, and it was like I was given a day, I was told the transcript was approved, and then it just disappeared, and it was heartbreaking, because I worked so hard for so long to get that shit, and then to be so excited and be like, it's gonna happen in this month, this is awesome, and then all of a sudden it just disappears.
And you're talking about like stand up on a late night show. Mm-hmm. So basically, you do your act, you submit a video, they tell you to cut this, add that,
exactly.
And it goes back and forth, and then
they want to come to live shows. So you have to set up those live shows. I jumped through so many hoops, and it was like some people it's very easy. Like they send in a 5-minute tape, it's one tweak. Not for me. To get the attention of of this person, I sent her, not even exaggerating, over 20 minutes of clean material, because this person likes to kind of like weave their own sets and like work with you in a specific way. So because I had that connection and like we knew each other, and I know this person liked me as a comic, I was like, okay, cool, let's work together, let's collaborate. It was a year-long process of like so much work went into it, and then just like gone, you know, not really understanding why or what happened. And it's just like a real bummer. And then to have another like at least I think year project that would have been like huge, that's like a year and a half and super time sensitive, just get sidetracked through nothing wrong that I did. It's just like,
what's the life lesson? What do you think? I know you're still in like piecing up the rubble, but like, what do you think the lesson is in all that?
I don't think there is a lesson. I just think shit isn't fair. You know, like I really mean that, you know, and it's like, I mean, these are still good problems. Like there are so many, the news is so goddamn depressing. You know, it's like, this isn't like, I just don't think shit's fair. And it's like,
I think in sometimes you know, it'll work in your favor sometimes when it's not fair. You know what I mean? Sometimes you'll just get something that you're like, well, I could have cared less about that, but I guess on paper it's just as much bragging rights as this other thing. But like, I understand like the emotional investment when you want something and then it doesn't come through. It's like, these are our babies. We don't have babies. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, these are, you have nothing else other than like your own creative.
It's just like that tease of like, this is but you hear that all the time where it's like someone can be recast in a movie like the last second, or like, and they'll just redo all their roles and they think they're going to be in a movie, or they're just randomly cut out, or like
your scene gets cut, you know.
And that was the thing for like 13 months that you were saying like, this thing's coming out, I got this heat, this and that, and
then your episode airs and you're not in it and you're like, okay.
Like I was on an MTV show and like literally right before my episode it got canceled, which it was like I was like on the 4th episode, they aired 3 and canceled it. It's like it just happens, you know, and it's nobody's fault, but it's just like, and I know I'm not like, there are way sadder stories, you know, like the lady who showed up for her first date right for romance.
That sucks.
This shit just happens.
Look,
you know? It's devastating.
I feel your devastation. I understand and empathize with you. So even though I hate the people that are like, wow, they're starving this and people have wars, and it's like, no, you're investing your life into this lifestyle that is not a meritocracy, and you're gonna get the raw deals.
But I mean, Dave, you're reading this Marianne Williamson book. And
what's it called again?
The Law of Divine Compensation.
Yeah.
We just got it, and it's pretty darn good. And maybe you're still in your healing process, and so you don't want to read it yet, but maybe you should read it, because basically her take is that like, it's sort of like that, well, when one door closes, another one opens type thing.
Yeah.
In that like your viewpoint should be that like everything works out to be the most positive for you. So even though it sucks when like this thing doesn't work out, this thing doesn't happen, your scene gets cut, it's like, well, maybe because you're rerouting your path to
the
something that is
will
more
be rerouted.
perfect.
She doesn't want to believe this.
Yeah.
the miracle, you're going to come back on when you're going to be catapulted to the next level that this opportunity that you were sidetracked with didn't do. But yeah, it's like a boulder was placed in the river and you're going to reroute the river, and you're going to be fine because you have your talent, your creativity. I'm like your dad now.
It's like, you never know. I mean, you never know where things are going to work out. I don't know. I don't necessarily agree that everything that happens in life is like for a better path. I think it just happens and you kind of have to be an adult and get over it. And I've been like moping.
But also you're not gonna no. Oh yeah, eat the ice cream, do whatever.
You know,
but like,
you're just be like, okay,
you're gonna burn that off. You're gonna burn that moping off,
Yeah.
and then you're gonna be a creative person who's working towards something.
Who still has had all of this experience, right?
Yeah.
Who still has the episode that didn't air on her resume. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I really think you should do your own podcast. Because all these late night things, don't want to be this, don't want to be that. Now this, you hit the button and you are you, and then you'll be the Russell Peters of the podcast, of the Indian podcast world. I think you got it in
a lot
there.
of impressions, a lot of accents.
Yeah, there you go. I don't know. I love it. We got to get out of here. How can we promote you? Instagram? Any show dates?
Yeah. So you can follow me on Instagram. It's SUBHAHA, or on Twitter at just my first name, SUBHAH. So, and I try to post anything about shows and updates and stuff.
Nice. And hopefully you'll be on our next Mimosa show. Or
Yeah,
11:30 a.m. It's a hot show.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. People, almost everyone that goes to the show has been to like 3 or 4 in a row because it's become quite the East and you live in the area. It's in East Hollywood. It's a little 25-seater, so it's like a tight little room. I bring a bunch of mimosas and everyone just gets lit at 11:30 in the morning. But yeah, you'll crush it. Tasha, anything to promote for you?
Nothing at the moment, no.
We're promoting Marianne Williamson. She's our hero. Searching for miracles in our life. You know, when you're reading these self-help books, that shit could be going better. You never read it when you never like, oh, things are going great. I'll pick up Marianne Williamson's book now. No, but it's nice to just find different sort of paths of people that are seeing life differently, because I've been way too cynical in the last 6 years I've lived in LA. I used to actually like be a really positive person, and now I'm just like,
But I don't think that like cynicism gets you anywhere.
No, it's
You know, it's one of those like dark forces kind of things that like other people can be turned off by. So
yeah, it can be a self-fulfilling prophecy.
yeah.
Exactly. That was Conan's speech on his last day of hosting the Tonight Show was all about like don't feel bad for me. Cynicism's the worst thing in the world, and it's so like right on that. Yeah, I could take what you're saying, Subhah, with that the world just some things just don't work out. At least that place you're not playing the victim. You're just saying shit. It's random, man. It's random out there.
Yeah.
Well, take all the positives. Know that it's random, and you'll keep failing in the right direction. Not you failing, but like, you know, that's what I call failing upwards, whatever they call it.
Forward.
Failing forward. Yeah, just you're leaning forward, you're going to hit some failures, you're going to fail nonstop, and then eventually it's all just going to, you know, the floodgates will open up because you've pushed yourself in the right direction. You've kind of like solidified those like neuro paths that you were creating anyway, and then it's all gravy from there. I think we'll end on that. All right.
Sounds good.
That's the Sex Action Podcast. Thank you so much for doing the show. I really appreciate it.
Me.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
There you have it, folks. I hope you had a good one.
SAP.